are 3 shortcuts to creating a legendary sports car. First, you must wrap it in sultry Italian sheet metal. Then you have to call it something that makes you roll your R's. And finally, of course, it needs a screaming engine. Or you could cheat and copy an old design and then make up a name that sounds like it's romantic, but actually is meaningless. And then you can dust off an old Italian engine layout from the history books. Ladies and gentlemen, please say buongiorno to the very, very German Volkswagen Corrado. There is but one thing all car companies have in common. They all want to make a sports car. VW's first real attempt at a sports car became the Porsche 914, when Volkswagen's chairman dropped dead and his replacement wanted nothing to do with sports cars. VW's second try to make a sports car also became a Porsche, the 924, which was sold off to Porsche after another last-second change in VW management. For its third attempt, Volkswagen got lazy. Or just smart, depending on how you look at it. Rather than make a purpose-built sports car, it could pull the same trick it used turning the Beetle into the Carmen Ghia, put a sexy Italian design body on a utilitarian car. Say hello to Scirocco. Designed by Giorgetto Giugiaro, the Scirocco was, like its Golf mechanical twin, one hell of a performer. Style meets substance, and Scirocco meet sales success. The second generation Scirocco was the same basic car inside a heavier and less attractive body, and people didn't really love it, but Volkswagen decided its sports coupe should be the vehicle to debut all-new powertrain technologies. So even though it was in its old age, the Mark II Scirocco debuted Volkswagen's first ever 16-valve engine, turning the Scirocco into a Scirocco 16-valve and creating, and I quote from period reviews, a supercoupe to be reckoned with. The image maker thing must have gone over well because Volkswagen decided the third generation Scirocco would do the same thing. Unfortunately, that meant the new car would be so expensive to produce that Volkswagen couldn't position it as a Scirocco replacement. The Scirocco was already way too expensive. So VW decided to continue producing the Mark II Scirocco and invent another, even more premium sports coupe that would sit above it. But of course it needed a new name because you can't have 2 cars with the same name. So Volkswagen came up with the name Typhoon, which is German for typhoon, and sucked. VW's naming convention was quite limiting. All of its cars were named after winds. Golf for Gulfstream, Jetta for Jetstream, Polo after the polar winds, even Passat and Scirocco were winds. And so the new VW broke wind. Or more accurately, broke with Volkswagen's tradition of naming its cars after winds. The Scirocco's replacement would be called the Corrado, which is a completely made-up name that sort of sounds like to run in Spanish. But more importantly, it could be Italian, and that keeps with the cardinal rule of sports car naming. But what about that Italian styling? Well, the Mark I Scirocco was unquestionably Italian. VW says the Mark II was done internally, but I call foul. The Mark II Scirocco has a Hofmeister kink, and it looks identical to a Giugiaro concept done for BMW, which of course had a Hofmeister kink. So in the world according to me, the Mark II Scirocco was also a Giugiaro design, albeit a slightly stolen one. The Corrado went back to the Mark I Scirocco's actual Giugiaro design. It was an almost identical but far chunkier copy of the gorgeous Mark I, right down to the kinked window line and trapezoidal C-pillar. And it was gorgeous. Still is. It was a performer too. The third-gen VW sports car was mostly a Mark II Golf underneath, and so not surprisingly, the Corrado was praised for all of the things the GTI was great at, including great steering, nimble handling, and packaging. The Corrado has a genuinely usable back seat and a big trunk. In a world of cheap-feeling, impractical, and flimsy sports coupes, the Corrado offered a more expensive, more sophisticated German experience. Plus, it had a rear spoiler that deployed electrically, reducing rear aerodynamic lift by a very precise, very German 64%. We see this kind of stuff all the time now, but trust me, this made quite a stir in late 1988. And so how about that final rule of making a sports car, the engine? True to Volkswagen's stated goal, the Corrado was used to debut a new powertrain, and it made for the first and only North American appearance of Volkswagen's G60 engine. This was the old 1.8-liter 8-valve four-cylinder, fortified with boost from a new positive displacement supercharger that Volkswagen designed in-house. It made horsepower, noise, and vibration in equal measure, and wheezed its way to 60 considerably behind its predecessor, the far lighter Scirocco 16-valve. Not a good start. Look, the Corrado was supposed to be a showcase for new powertrain technologies, and the magazine said the new engine was a big disappointment. Potential customers said, I think I'll take a Honda Prelude. And Volkswagen said, oh, They had forgotten the third rule. The Corrado needed a standout engine. Let's talk about that reality for a second. This is a tiny little car. It's 8 inches shorter and 4 inches narrower than today's tiny little Subaru BRZ. So it's not like you can shove an enormous engine in here. That is the biggest and most powerful 16-valve four-cylinder Volkswagen made at the time. It was the optional engine on this car in Europe, and it was maxed out in bore. There was no way you could go over 2 liters without adding more cylinders. And this is what a 2.5-liter straight 6 looks like. I'm gonna put it right here on top of the four-cylinder, and you're gonna see a problem right off the bat. The engine ends past the end of the car, and it doesn't even allow room for the accessories and belts on this side. You can't put it this way because this is where the transmission starts, and that's something you can't just change. So a straight 6 was never gonna work. Another solution would be to take that 6-cylinder and split it into 2, making a V6. And V6s are short, so it would fit left to right. But even if it did fit front to back, it wouldn't leave room for things like a radiator or crash space. And besides, V6s are very expensive to produce because they have 2 heads. And if we're being honest, they're also very rough and usually don't sound very good. The compromise came in the form of an engine layout that Lancia had pioneered back in 1922. VW reduced the V-angle from a V6's typical 90 or 60 degrees to just 15. That meant the cylinders would be close enough together that the engine could use just 1 cylinder head. But of chief importance, a 6-cylinder fit where a 4-cylinder used to live. It was barely any bigger. It was genius. And the magic sports car recipe was complete. This is the VR6. It displaced 2.8 liters and made 178 horsepower. And man, did that fix the acceleration problem. It knocked almost 2 seconds off the 0 to 60 time, which was now 6.4 seconds on its way to 141 miles an hour. This put it at the absolute front of the supercoupe class, ahead of even the turbocharged all-wheel drive Eagle Talon and Mitsubishi Eclipse. But it wasn't the speed that really transformed the Corrado. It was the noise. Period Road Test described the 4-cylinder G60 as sounding like the backstreet beatings of an overage Oompa band, but praised the VR6 for creating music from the depths and heights of a great symphony orchestra with a feel for pops. And that was before they compared it to Mozart and to F1. That's Formula One, not McLaren F1. Though, fun fact, the McLaren F1 did use the Corrado side mirrors and nothing else. Anyway, the biggest problem with the VR6 engine is that 30 years later, we're all still arguing, ironically, about its name. VW now calls it a V6, which it isn't. But it's also not a straight 6 either. Indeed, that's why the VR6 was called VR6. It was a combination of V6 and R6, which is the German abbreviation for inline 6, because it's a combination of both. Get it? The VR6 does have its cylinders in a V, but it uses offset crank pins to give it a straight 6 firing order. And it's almost as smooth as a straight 6, and sounds like one too, just with a little bit of a warble thanks to its head design. You'll notice I said head. It has 1, it only needs 1, and it's thanks to all of this packaging benefits that this is really the best of all worlds. The VR6 powered Corrado also got some pretty unusual upgrades. While the 4-cylinder Corrado was mostly a Mark II Golf underneath, the VR6 got its running gear from the Mark III Golf. That meant little things like a switch from a rod to a cable-actuated shifter and 5-lug wheels, but also a bulging hood and wider fenders to fit bigger suspension components. The VR6 Corrado actually had better weight distribution than the old G60, and it trounced that car's already impressive handling and braking performance. In fact, it beat everything in its class, including the Acura Integra GSR and the Eagle Talon TSI. But all of that performance came at quite a price. Badged SLC here in America for Sports Luxury Coupe, its sticker bloated from the original Corrado's $17,900 to over $25,000 by the end. That's like $45,000 of today's dollars, enough to buy you a brand new Subaru BRZ with enough money left over to buy a second, used BRZ. And so the Corrado VR6 sales were abysmal, though I'm not sure that's actually such a bad thing, because if there's something else that always guarantees legendary status among sports cars, it's scarcity. Transformed by one of the best-sounding engines to ever be put in a production car, with incredible rip-off Italian looks and a great name, the Volkswagen Corrado always was, and always will be, a revelation. Okay, so you're just gonna keep the Ferrari framed out the entire time, right?
Yep.
Okay.
Action.
I'm not some rich YouTuber asking you to like and subscribe. Hey, up, keep the Ferrari out. I'm an automotive journalist asking you to like and subscribe. And that's because that's how YouTube works. If you don't click those buttons, YouTube doesn't know you liked what you've just seen and isn't gonna show you any more of it. And if you don't like what you've just seen, well, join the club. And by that, I mean the Hagerty Drivers Club, which gets you access to this award-winning magazine, as well as discounts on amazing stuff. And if you still don't like what you've seen, well, then just leave a nasty comment, because that's how the internet works. I need to go clean that up.